remains of the action is its potential, the inevitability of its result. It is a force released into the stream of time, and in time it must have its fruition, and when for good or ill it has fructified, like all else its force must pass away, and then the Kamma and the Vipaka alike are no more. But as the old Kammas die, new ones are created every moment of every waking hour. So the life process involved in suffering is carried on. It is borne along on the current of craving. It is in its essence nothing but that craving, that desire, the desire that takes many forms, is insatiable, is self-renewing, as many-formed as Proteus, as undying as the phoenix. But when there comes the will to end desire, change takes place. The mind that craved gratification in the fields of sense now turns away. Another desire, other than that of the senses, gathers power and momentum. It is the desire for cessation, for peace, for the end of pain and sorrow, the desire for Nibbana. Now this desire is incompatible with all other desires. Therefore, if it becomes strong enough, it kills all other desires. Gradually they fade out. First the grosser cravings springing from the free moral roots, then the higher desires, then the attachments. All wilt and fade out, extinguished by the one overmastering desire for Nibbana. And as they wilt and fade, and no more result-producing actions take their place, so the current of the life continuum dries up. Unwholesome actions cannot be performed because their roots have withered away. There is no more basis for them. The wholesome deeds in their turn become sterile. Since they are not motivated by desire, they do not project any force into the future. In the end, there is no craving, force left to produce another birth. Everything has been swallowed up by the desire for the extinction of desire. And when the object of desire is gained, can it any longer be a desire? Does a man continue to long for what he has already got? The last desire of all is not self-renewing, it is self-destroying. For in its fulfillment is its own death. Nibbana is attained. Therefore the Buddha said, for the final cessation of suffering, all Kamma, wholesome and unwholesome, must be transcended, must be abandoned. Putting aside good and evil, one attains Nibbana. There is no other way. Arahat, or the Arahat, lives then only experiencing the residuum of his lifespan, and when that last remaining impetus comes to an end, the aggregates of his personality come to an end too, never to be reconstructed, never to be replaced. In their continual renewal there was suffering, now there is release. In their coming together there was illusion, the illusion of self, now there is reality, and reality is beyond conception. Kamma and causality, Francis Story. Does everything happen in our lives according to Kamma? This question is not one that can be answered by a plain affirmation or denial, since it involves the whole question of free will against determinism, or in familiar language, fatalism. The nearest that can be given to a simple answer is to say that most of the major circumstances and events of life are conditioned by Kamma, but not all. If everything down to the minutest detail were preconditioned either by Kamma or by the physical laws of the universe, there will be no room in the pattern of strict causality for the functioning of free will. It would therefore be impossible for us to free ourselves from the mechanism of cause and effect. It would be impossible to attain nibbana. In the sphere of everyday events and the incidents of life, such as sickness, accidents, and such common experiences, every effect requires more than one cause to bring it about, and Kamma is in most cases the predisposing factor which enables the external influences to combine and produce a given result. In the case of situations that involve a moral choice, the situation itself is the product of past Kamma, but the individual's reaction to it is a free play of will and intention. For example, a man, as a result of previous unwholesome akusala Kamma, either in the present life or some past birth, may find himself in a situation of desperate poverty in which he is sorely tempted to steal, commit a robbery, or in some other way carry into the future the unwholesome actions of the past. This is a situation with a moral content, because it involves the subject in a nexus of ethical potentials. Here his own freedom of choice comes into play. He has the alternative of choosing further hardship rather than succumb to the temptation of crime. In the Paticca Samuppada, the cycle of dependent origination, the factors belonging to the previous births, that is, ignorance, and the actions conditioned by it, are summarized as the Kamma process of the past. This Kamma produces consciousness, name and form, sense perception fields, contact and sensation as its resultants, and this is known as the present effect. Thus the physical and mental makeup, nama rupa, is the manifestation of past Kamma operating in the present, as also are the phenomena cognized and experienced through the channels of sense. But running along with this is another current of action, that which is controlled by the will, and this is known as the present volitional activity. It is the counterpart in the present of the Kamma process of the past. It governs the factors of craving, grasping, and becoming. This means, in effect, that the current of becoming, which has its source in past karma, at the point where it manifests as individual reaction, as for example in the degree of craving engendered as the result of pleasurable sensations, comes under the control of the will, so that while the subject has no further control over the situation in which he finds himself, having himself created them in the past, he yet has a subjective control over his response to them, and it is out of this that he creates the conditions of his future. The present volitional activity then takes effect in the form of future resultants, and these future resultants are the counterpart in the future of the kamic resultants in the present. In an exactly similar way, it dominates the future birth state and conditions in which the Paticca Samuppada are expressed as arising, old age and death, etc. The entire cycle implies a dynamic progression in which the state conditioned by past actions is at the same time the womb of present actions and their future results. Kamma is not only an integral law of the process of becoming, it is itself that process, and the phenomenal personality is but